Hello guys, welcome back to another episode here on African Confessions. So this is a continuation of an episode that we uploaded yesterday. After we had done that sacrifice, money started to flow in our house like a river. Our lives were transformed, and within a few months we were driving very nice cars. We then opened a few clothing shops here in Tanzania. These clothes, we were selling them all across Tanzania. So these clothes, we were importing them from Turkey, Dubai, USA and the UK, but the most quality clothes we were getting them from Turkey. So these second-hand clothes, we were then exporting them to Mozambique. Then they will be sold in countries like Zambia, South Africa and also Zimbabwe. Keep in mind that the money that we used to start up this business was just coming from nowhere. We even reached a point whereby on Alibaba there were a few companies that were renting our shipping container. Money was just coming from everywhere. So when we bought our first house, it was quite a challenge because at that time we didn't understand the finances that were involved when you are buying a house, because to us we just thought that since we have the money, you can just go and look around, and if you see that there is a house that is being sold, you just go in there, then you buy that house, then that house now belongs to you. We didn't understand that there were other processes that must be followed. So what we did is that me and my husband, at that time we had a car, we used to go around with a suitcase and we had loads of money in that suitcase. Eventually we then purchased our first house. It was quite a very beautiful house in a quiet neighborhood with a balcony overlooking the CBD. So what happened is that because we had purchased that house in cash, it took us 6 months for the payment to go through because they wanted to verify if this was not stolen money and stuff. But you know that this is Africa, anything can happen. So we then found a lawyer who had the right connections, and that lawyer is the one who helped us with the transferring of the properties into my husband's name. So after everything was done, we then moved into that house. What we did with our children is that we told them that upstairs it is going to be daddy's working space, and we didn't want to disturb daddy while he was working. So what we did upstairs is that we converted one of the bedrooms into an office, but it wasn't an office as such, but we wanted a room whereby it had enough security, because we didn't want the mistake of if in that room we put that thing whereby we will be doing our sacrifices and our prayers, then someone would just accidentally walk into that house. Even a maid, that was the reason why we never had a maid in our house, because we knew that once we had a maid, mistakes will happen. So what we did is that we just got this other woman. She would just come and clean maybe on Monday, then she will come back on Friday. So what many people don't understand about this blood money thing, they think that once you do this sacrifice and you are a ritualist, then each and every day it's like you are shedding blood, killing people. But it's not like that. Sometimes you can even go for years without killing anyone, and you can even forget that you are a ritualist, but here and there that thing will come back to you, reminding you that, let's say if you use the money for something that you are not supposed to do, then it will just maybe remind you. Maybe you'll be driving, it will remind you, or maybe in your dreams it can even remind you. Sometimes in your house, you and your husband, you can even fight and even threaten to divorce each other, but you come back together because of this thing that you have done together. Even my kids, they never suspected anything, because me and my husband, what we will do in the morning is that we will wake up, then we will have sex. Then my husband, he was not supposed to like wash his penis or wipe any fluids that were on his penis. Then he was supposed to go into that office that we had converted and made a room whereby we will do our sacrifices and our rituals. Then he will go into that room. So in this room there was a cardboard box that we had placed in that room at the center of the room. So when my husband will go in there, he will find large sums of money in that cardboard box. Then we'll take that money, then we'll buy whatever that we need. So the tricky part about this money is that you just cannot say that I want to go and buy this house, I want to go and buy this car. There are processes whereby you are supposed to follow. Let's say you want to go on a vacation, you have to ask for permission, then it will tell you if you are allowed to go on that vacation or not. If you do something wrong, that is when you are supposed to make a sacrifice. If you break the oath that was given to you, that is when you are supposed maybe to kill your own relative. Then you atone the sin that you have committed with the blood of your relative. So this is how these sacrifices work. So in this quiet neighborhood that we were now staying, I realized that most of the people, they never stayed with their own kids. They would just send their kids to very expensive schools. That is what we ended up doing. So me and my husband, we used to stay alone. Then here and there, the maid will come, and also we had a gardener, but he was not working full time. He would just come and he would go back. So there was a time that me and my husband, we had traveled to Turkey to get some quotations of clothes, because what we were planning to do is that we wanted to open an upmarket boutique. So we just wanted to see what kind of clothes we will be getting from Turkey, from our suppliers. So when I was coming back, I then purchased some blankets and some pillows. So my husband already knew how much I loved those blankets and pillows that I had purchased in Turkey, because they were so expensive. Whenever I wanted great sex from him, he already knew that he would just come back and you'll find that on the bed there will be a Louis Vuitton comfy blanket and some Chanel pillows. But on this day, what happened is that I had just finished bathing and everything was ready. I was ready for that night because I just wanted me and my husband to enjoy sex. So as I was busy doing my hair and my makeup, because I wanted to look good for my husband, I suddenly saw that there was someone who was sitting on the bed. But this person, I couldn't see his face. He had the body structure of my husband. So I thought maybe he had just came out of the office, but he looked so sad. So I stood up from where I was sitting and I walked towards my husband. I thought that it was my husband. I didn't know that this person who was sitting on my bed, it was actually my husband's older brother, the first person who we had sacrificed. So I sat next to him all along thinking that it was my husband. Then I was like holding him in my arms. Then I said, honey, what is the problem? That is when I saw that this was not my husband. It was my husband's elder brother. He just turned his head and he faced me. So when he was looking at me, I saw that he had no eyes at all. It was as if someone had pulled out his eyes and worms were coming from everywhere, from his ears, from his nose, from his mouth. So I rose up and I screamed, trying to run away. So what will happen is that when I would run away from him, then I will reach the door. I'll find myself again sitting right next to him. I kept on screaming, running away from him. Then I eventually got downstairs. Then I got into the car. But when I was in the car, I started the car and I left the house. But whilst I was driving, suddenly he was just sitting right there next to me. I got out of the car and I ran. I just left the car in the middle of the road. I then called my husband and I told him exactly what had happened whilst I was at the house, and at the moment I didn't know where exactly I was. He then told me that I should send him my location via WhatsApp. I did, and he came and he picked me up, but we never returned to the house. We drove straight to the village because we intended to go to the mountain. But whilst we were driving towards the village, that woman just appeared from nowhere. Then she was like sitting at the back of our car. Then she told us that we had broken the oath. My husband asked, how had we broken the oath? Then she just replied and said, tell your wife that you have been cheating on her. I was so angry at my husband, but at that moment there was nothing to be angry about. Then that woman just told us that we had to appease the spirit of my husband's older brother, otherwise his spirit will torment us forever and ever. So we had to do a very big sacrifice. This time it had to be a very close family member. My daughter, I had to sacrifice my daughter. I slapped my husband because I was so angry with him. I asked him, how could you do this to us? How could you be so selfish? What is it that I have not done for you that any other woman can do for you? Look at all the things that we have done together. How could you betray me like this? I cried so hard. My husband then parked his car on the side of the road and he tried to explain to me what had happened. He told me that he had met this woman and this woman had seduced him into her own bed and then they slept together. Whilst he was trying to explain, I was crying, and this woman who was sitting at the back of our car, she started to laugh. She laughed so hard. So the more that she laughed, the more that I cried, and my husband was banging the steering wheel, screaming at that woman at the back of the car, saying, shut up, but she kept on laughing until she disappeared. When that woman disappeared, my husband then turned the car around. We drove so slowly towards our daughter's school. Then we picked one of our daughters. We told her that there was something that we needed to be done at the house. The other girl, we left her at school. On our way to our house, she spoke, she joked, but we never replied her because we knew that this thing that we were about to do, it was a very difficult thing. When we arrived at our place, it was as if that woman was still laughing. We could hear a voice laughing upstairs. My husband went upstairs. Me, myself, I didn't have the nerve to go upstairs with him. The moment that I heard him closing his office door, I knew that this was it. This was the end of my daughter's life. He was going to slaughter our daughter like a chicken. I sat there next to my daughter, speaking with her because I knew that this was the last time, and she didn't know that upstairs her father was going to slaughter her like a chicken. After like 30 minutes or so, that woman's laughter just disappeared and I heard a sad voice. It was the voice of my husband. He was calling me upstairs. I rushed upstairs. Even my daughter was surprised. She even said, "Mommy, you are going to fall. Why are you running like that?" I just looked at her and I never said anything. Then I walked towards my husband. I found him sitting right there on the spot where I had seen his older brother sitting. He had blood in his hands. He looked at me and he said, "It is done. It is done, my wife." I sat next to him and we cried together. That same night, my daughter, she became so ill. We then called the ambulance. On our way to the hospital, me and my husband, we knew that this was no illness. It just meant that our daughter had been accepted as a sacrifice. Slowly, she was going to die. We just left her at the hospital. Then we returned home because we knew that the work had to be done. We had to complete the sacrifice. When we returned home, we found out that that woman who was sitting at the back of our car, she was waiting for us at the gate. We didn't speak with her. She kept on laughing. She followed us upstairs into that office, into that room, and we completed the sacrifice. We took our daughter's blood that had just appeared into this wooden plate, and we poured it on top of that worm, and that worm just disappeared. When we came out of that office, we found out that that woman who had followed us upstairs, that heartless woman, was still there, just standing there laughing. She kept on laughing at us. The whole night she laughed. Even when we were called by the hospital, she laughed and she followed us until we had reached the hospital, and then she disappeared. We were told that our daughter had just passed away. We cried, but we were just pretending because we knew what exactly had happened to our daughter. So far, those are the only close relatives that we have sacrificed. My husband's older brother, and then our daughter. So I don't know what is going to happen in the future. If anything ever happen, I will try to update you. If I ever find the time, I will then tell you what I did with that woman who had cheated with my husband, because in my heart, I laid all the blame on her. She's the one who caused me to sacrifice my own daughter. So I will tell you what I did with her life. If you ever post this story, please notify me. I'll also follow up in the comment section. I thank you so much. Dear listeners, that was a story right there from our sister from Tanzania. Quite a story. Let's meet again in the following episodes.